In 2019, a remarkable journey began with a simple act of compassion, the adoption of a school in Luaro. This act set the stage for a series of transformative events that would shape the path of philanthropy, humanitarianism, and social entrepreneurship for me. The Young Eye Foundation emerged dedicated to work in early childhood care and education, uplifting marginalized youth by expanding our scope of work to the Naguru Remand Home in 2021. In 2022, the dedication and impact of the foundation was celebrated as I was named the youngest winner of the prestigious Top 40 Under 40 award by Vision Group. This milestone served as a catalyst propelling me towards many opportunities in the future. The recognition did not stop there. The University of Waterloo acknowledged this work, featuring me on the Faculty of Science page. Opportunities followed suit as jobs poured in rapidly. The Waterloo Chronicle sought out my thoughts on combating racism and promoting equity, diversity, and inclusion. In 2022, a defining moment arrived when I joined the Canada Children's Hospital Foundation, a job that breathed a new purpose into my life. With the continued efforts and work, the impact that I had continued to resonate, earning me a featured spot in the University of Waterloo's President's Update, Global Futures magazine, and online publication in 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Young Guy International, a product of the Young Guy Initiative. I'm proudly affiliated with the Darren Bainey blog. Join us on this inspiring journey of creating impact, inspiring change, and spreading hope in the world. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Young Guy International. From wherever you're listening to this from, my name is Darren Harry Bainey, and I am the host of this podcast. The mission here is to create a socially connected world by diving deep into captivating stories, ideas, and experiences that shape our world, providing you with fresh perspectives and a renewed sense of curiosity. Whether you're a seasoned enthusiast or a curious beginner, this podcast is for everyone who craves intellectual stimulation and thought-provoking discussions. Today with me, I'm honored to have the president and vice-chancellor of the University of Waterloo, the institution where I am proudly affiliated to as a student, Dr. Vivek Goel. Thank you very much for being on this podcast with me today.
It's great to be here with you. Thank you.
Just a bit of background about Dr. Vivek. Like I said, he's the current president and vice chancellor of the University of Waterloo in Canada. He also is a distinguished scholar with extensive achievements in research, teaching, and leadership across public and private sectors that have been recognized in Canada and around the world as a leading public health researcher, health services evaluation expert, and champion for the use of research evidence in health policy making. He was also a university administrator and served as a special advisor to the president and provost of the University of Toronto. But today, I talked to him in his capacity as the president and vice chancellor, like I said, of an institution I am proudly affiliated to, the University of Waterloo. And Dr. Vivek, to get straight into it, the University of Waterloo, of course, is known for its core program. And for those not that are not aware or not familiar with the core program, it's essentially work integrated learning, where as students of the University of Waterloo, we are given the opportunity to have practical experiences of the things that we are taught and the things that we learn from our lectures in school, and giving us 4 months or 8 months or even a year of work experience at institutions in Canada and internationally. And it has been listed as the best in Canada. And this is evident and seen as it is the number one in Canada for graduate employment rate. But, sir, in your opinion, what sets CORP apart in both the national and global scale, and what makes it such a valuable a piece to have as the University of Waterloo?
Yeah, so as you just noted, it is really the defining characteristic of our institution. It goes right back to the founding of the university in 1957 by local community leaders who at the time, in terms of the industry that was present here, saw the transformation that was happening through new technologies, computers, and so on, that they needed a different type of engineer at the time. And that the engineers needed to really understand what was happening in the workplace. So the idea of the co-op program is students move between classes and work settings. They're 4-month placements in engineering. Students will graduate with 5 or 6 4-month placements over a 5-year period of time. So that's up to 2 years of relevant work experience. Obviously, the students bring what they learn in the classroom to the work settings, but they also bring what they learn in the work settings back into their classroom and to the experiences of their peers. And so, as a result, the learning that happens on our campuses is also very much informed by what's happening out there in real life work settings. And while the program started with our focus in engineering, it now includes programs in every one of our faculties, and close to 80% of our students will do co-op. Almost all of our fields of study have at least some co-op opportunities included in them. Beyond that connection with the workplace, the students also learn skills such as how to interview for jobs, how to search for work, how to build networks with employers and coworkers. In the course of their studies, they have an opportunity to try different work environments, as you mentioned, not just local, but global, public sector, private sector, NGOs. And so a student in any discipline has an opportunity to explore what their different career opportunities might look like. Obviously, a very direct benefit is you earn while you're doing those co-op placements. And so this helps to offset the cost of tuition and the cost of living, gives students an opportunity to learn about themselves. Also note, it's a huge benefit for us as an institution because it ensures that we have linkages with the workplaces throughout the world in a variety of sectors of the economy in public and private sector. And so it informs our curriculum development. It also informs our research. The research of our professors, I find, is much more connected than at other institutions because they're constantly hearing from the students what those problems and issues in the workplaces are. And it is a way for us to stay connected to our region as well as around the world. We have co op students in over 60 countries at any given time. And as you noted, we are the largest co-op institution in Canada, uh, one of the largest in the world, and we are the largest institution that is research intensive that also does co-op. So most of the other institutions in other parts of the world that do cooperative education are primarily undergraduate education institutions. And so that really creates a different kind of environment for our students and for our research. And finally, as I conclude on this point, I'll highlight the comment that you made in the introduction. We have a very high job placement rate. Our co-op students, up to 98% of them, are working in their field of study. And so we often hear about students working as Starbucks baristas or whatever. Waterloo graduates across all fields, sciences, humanities, arts, in co-op, wind up working in their field of education.
Sure. And thank you for sharing that perspective. And it's interesting coming from you, the fact that you essentially want to place students to be ready to position themselves for the job market and also have an impact in essentially where they choose to end up in. But also, it's key, like you noted, that they gain relevant skills during their time,
Yeah.
linking the things that the practical aspect of things that they do in their co-op, but also what they're studying in the classroom. And from that point, I wanted to ask, what is one thing that you believe as students we need to look forward to or look into as we go into co-ops? That is, to simplify it, what is one piece of advice you would tell a co-op student as they go into a co-op term that, look, this is what I think you should ultimately focus on trying to achieve from this experience?
So, in terms of an individual co-op placement, what I would really encourage students and is that they look at all the opportunities that that co-op employer provides. So it's very easy to go in and here's my job. I'm going to work at my job, do the tasks. But those companies, those businesses, those government agencies, it might be a hospital, wherever you're working, are doing so much more. Learn about the organization, learn about who they work with, and build your networks and your knowledge of what they do. So
True.
look at the co-op placement as much more than just that individual job with a set of tasks. The other more general comment I would make is, we often hear stories, and this is more historical, of students who got their first co-op placement in a particular employer and stayed with that employer in the same job for all of their co-op placements. Just like you don't go and work in the same place for your own career anymore, I don't think it's a good idea to just have one co-op employer throughout your career. You should really encourage students to explore different employers, different types of employers, public, private sector, local, global, NGOs, government organizations,
True.
international aid organizations, work in a variety of settings and learn about the world so that you can really be prepared for a range of careers and a range of changes that are going to happen over your lifetimes.
True, true. And the reason I asked that, sir, is because my first co-op job, that was last year in 2022. I worked as an international relations analyst at Waterloo International with Dr. Ian as well. And what that experience gave me is this international context, appreciating the work that the university does in building partnerships on an international level. And what that brings me now to is talking a bit more about what I learned from that experience and the things that I picked. And one of the key things from my time there was that there was a time when the definition of being a top Canadian university was changing, and it was changing aside from being fully academically gifted, but what more can we show the world to present the University of Waterloo as a top university outside just the academia aspect of it. And I wanted to ask you how you feel that the University of Waterloo should be viewed differently, or what you envision in terms of the University of Waterloo being envisioned as a top Canadian institution.
Yeah, so I think this is informed really by our thinking and understanding of what makes a top university, and we all have our mental model of what a top university should be and what it should look like. And, we have images of Oxford or Cambridge or Stanford and Harvard as examples of the top leading universities historically. And, those, I have great respect for those institutions. I'm a graduate of Harvard myself, but they are one class of institution. They're very research focused. They tend to be smaller in terms of their undergraduate bodies. What institutions like Waterloo have done, and many Canadian universities, is we have built up research intensive universities that have much larger undergraduate student bodies. So we are much more accessible. We have a much broader range of students we are able to provide opportunities to. And particularly at University of Waterloo, as a result of that connectedness with the workplaces, we have much more impact. And so if we're measured against our ideal of a top university, we may not necessarily look as good. I think we still, on those metrics, do very well. We're in the top 200 universities in terms of those traditional measures of research productivity and so on. But what we really need to be looking at is the impact that we have on society, and the changes that our students, as they become alumni, are able to bring about, the changes that our research have on policy, on programs, on the nature of work, our entrepreneurial activities that our students and faculty engage in, that result in new ventures that really bring about change in the world. And what we really want to show is how working collaboratively within the institution across disciplines, as well as with partners in our region and around the world, we can have an impact on the really big challenges that the world faces. And we I know in your podcast you talk about these a lot, obviously environment and sustainability, health challenges, uh, dealing with food security. There's so many different challenges that the world faces. They will not be solved by narrow programs of research within very specific disciplinary areas. They require collaboration across disciplines and across sectors. And so, as a leading university, what we want to be judged on is what our impact on the world is.
True. And obviously, the aspect of creating impact on society and through initiatives like the Velocity Incubator, Conrad School of Business and Entrepreneurship, the Greenhouse Social Impact. Um, Talking about impact on society and having just these three as examples of the many avenues that Waterloo has to provide, to enable students to create impact. Why do you believe it is essential in preparing students to excel not only in their fields of study, but push them into having entrepreneurial minds and creating ideas that have an impact on society and to become future leaders?
So thank you for mentioning some of those initiatives, which are very unique to Waterloo. And having an entrepreneurial mindset is essential in approaching new challenges and coming up with creative solutions to them. And I want to be very clear that an entrepreneurial mindset does not translate into you must become an entrepreneur and a founder of a company,
Mm.
because an entrepreneurial mindset is something that you carry with you wherever you work. You could work in the public sector, you could work for a large company, you could work in the healthcare system as a health professional, but having that entrepreneurial mindset where you learn how to take a very complex problem, break it down, come up with solutions for it. You learn how to work with teams, with people from many different backgrounds and disciplines, and understand their viewpoint, understand their approaches, having compassion about the approaches that they're taking, and not rejecting out of hand, this doesn't make sense to me, and so I'm not going to work with you. So that's what I see as the entrepreneurial mindset, and that is ultimately what prepares someone to be a leader, because leadership involves working with teams from across areas. If you're in a large organization, you want to bring teams that are across different parts of the organization with different skill sets, and have help them to work together on solving very complex problems. And so with programs like Velocity or the Conrad School or Greenhouse, we create these environments where students can work in teams on addressing very complex problems. And they not only come up with solutions to the problems, but they also learn how to work with each other and how to self organize and lead each other to find those solutions.
Solutions. True. I agree with you. And on the aspect of leadership and how essentially it's meant to bring people together from different backgrounds and different disciplines and work towards achieving something, I think is central to how a person leads. And I've seen it as well in the University of Waterloo's commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion in terms of bringing people from different backgrounds and disciplines, heritage across the world. And on this point, in your opinion, how does the University of Waterloo's commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion that is exemplified through initiatives like the President's Anti-Racism Task Force, the Power to Report, um, enrich the learning environment that fosters, a level of vibrance, innovation, and collective growth at Waterloo?
So, if we want to again address the biggest challenges that are out there, we need the very best talent to come at those challenges. And if we're not being inclusive of everyone in the world, we're missing out on a fraction of that talent. And
True.
uh, if we go back and think traditionally, just starting with gender, when we excluded women from these kinds of roles, we were missing out on half the talent in the world. We've come a long way, but we know we have a lot more work to do in terms of gender equality. And if we think of other groups in society, we know we have a considerable amount of work, particularly from a global perspective. We know from many decades of research that diverse teams generate more innovative, creative solutions because they bring different perspectives, they bring different backgrounds, they think of problems in different ways. We know that being part of diverse teams helps people improve their communication skills. And communication is the most important characteristic of a leader, being able to communicate well. And so, giving students an opportunity to work in diverse teams of people with different backgrounds from different parts of the world, different languages, different cultures, really helps them build that fluency in communication and intercultural skills. And the big challenges are global challenges, and so we
Mm,
need global teams to address them. And again, the research shows that working in these kinds of cross-cultural environments helps empower students, gives them a greater sense of identity of their own self, and the students who feel welcome, who feel included from different backgrounds. If we create that environment that is open and welcoming, improves their success, improves their opportunities for personal growth and self awareness. I will also add that we are very much committed to truth and reconciliation. This is something that for Canada we're at a very significant moment in time. Our Indigenous people, the initial inhabitants of this land, First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people, have had centuries of disadvantage, of being excluded from society, and having had their lands, their wealth taken away from them. And so we are working with our communities on a journey of truth and reconciliation. I know this is something that's being addressed in many different parts of the world in different ways, but that's also a very significant element of the work that we are doing.
true, true. And like you said, from the beginning of the answer to the question of from research has shown that having a diverse team is essentially what creates some of the best ideas and the ones that are more progressive. And also, like you said, having a perspective that looks forward in the work that people do, not only from this equity, diversity, and inclusion perspective, but allowing the growth in understanding what it is. I wanted to pivot a little bit into questions that I asked a couple of people from the Waterloo community, but also prospective students into the Waterloo family, because this is an opportunity for them to hear some of the answers to the questions that they have. And I had three that I wanted to share with you. And actually, the first one stems off one of the aspects you talked about, being an international student. And one of the questions that I got from Daniel from Ghana, a prospective international student, he asked, I think this is also for all prospective international students, is how do you ensure international students have a culturally rich and academically rewarding experience at Waterloo?
Yeah. So we're very proud that we have students from over 120 countries at the University of Waterloo, and about a third of our students now are international students. And the international students, as Daniel asks, we aim to give them a rich and rewarding experience. We also aim to ensure that they feel welcome and they have an opportunity to engage with like-minded students with their own background, their own cultures as well, but that they have the opportunity to be exposed to other cultures. We have many services to support international students. We do have scholarships and awards for international students. Um, we know that there are challenges in making your way here. So we have immigration and work permit support to help, or study permit, work permit for co-op students, to ensure that students are able to get the right paperwork before they arrive. Um, we provide opportunities for students to interact with each other, so they can meet with senior international students and create a peer community. We know that sometimes international students um, are not going to have the opportunity to return home for holidays, and they miss their families. And so we create programming that during the holiday breaks, where some of the domestic students will go home to their own families, and so the international students might feel isolated. We give create opportunities for them to connect. As you experienced, international students are often the ones that take co-op opportunities on campus. They are often the ones that they can learn about campus, but they can also earn. It gives them opportunities to improve their communication skills, learn about the university. We have resources to support language education, particularly around English. We very much look to listen constantly to our international students, what challenges they're facing, what their issues are. We do know presently, and this is something that I think is uh, an issue right across the country and in many other countries, that housing has become a very specific challenge for all of our students, but particularly for international students,
True.
in terms of being able to find high quality, affordable housing close to campus. We're working to build a new residence. We're working with our municipal partners, with other community organizations to develop more housing stock. But this is a very immediate challenge that coming out as we come out of the pandemic
True.
that we are facing, and so we're here. We hear about these challenges from our international students and from all of our students, and then we work with them and community partners to address them.
Interesting. True. And as an international student myself, obviously, some of this is also new to me, but also it's good to have an opportunity for Daniel and for many other prospective and current international students to understand that there are opportunities to learn and grow, find a community, and also build on what you've started. And on the point of student housing, because it's a question that I got almost 10 times in in the survey that I sent out. And the question was around, because yes, you've answered the You've answered one part of it being you are thinking of building an extended campus, but some of the questions and solutions that they were giving were, is it possible for a larger partnership or collaboration with current existing off-campus residences to be created that can support this, especially during times like fall 2023 when priority is given to first years?
Mhm. Yeah, so absolutely, and so first of all, just to be clear, we are in do the design and a stage of a new residence that we expect to start construction on next year. So that will add some capacity, and absolutely looking at partnerships, and that's, as I mentioned, with community organizations, which includes some of the existing developers and large holders of spaces, because those spaces exist, but for first year students, it's important that there's a sense of community. And so, can our existing residence office, student life coordinators, and so on, can we have them work with some of those private developers in creating programming in their spaces and in helping to orient the first year students in particular? I think we do have traditionally uh, for our domestic students, we've had a first year guarantee of spaces that has resulted in a large proportion of our on campus resident spaces being dedicated to first year students. But we can work with some of these other providers of off campus housing to create the similar sorts of experiences. We're also looking to work with developers to have some partnerships to develop new residences in the lands surrounding the university that would be focused on meeting the needs of international students.
True, true. Thank you for sharing that because that was a question that came through multiple times, and I think that hearing from you is something that would maybe provide a bit of comfort, but an understanding of where exactly the University of Waterloo is in terms of providing housing to its students. And the last question from the audience that I got was one around safety. There's a parent called Amir. She said that my child's safety at University of Waterloo is of paramount importance to me. Then she asked, what tangible measures or strategies has the University of Waterloo implemented to ensure a secure environment, addressing both the physical and emotional safety of my child? I think she was referring to the hate motivated attack that happened recently at Hague Hall.
Yeah, and thanks for that question. It's a very important question, and as you noted, we did on June 28th have a hate-motivated attack in one of our classrooms, and really, really tragic incident that resulted in three people being injured, and the entire class really having to witness and be traumatized, and it has affected our entire community. Um, and we are fortunate that generally our day-to-day life in Canada and in this region of Waterloo is safe. And the incident, such as happened on June 28th, is a rare incident on our campuses and in our community. Um, but we are living in a world that is increasingly polarized, and there are uh, violent and hate motivated crimes happening across this country and right around the world. So we continue. We always work with our campus safety office, our campus constables, and our first responders, particularly the police in our region, to ensure that our community is as safe as possible. As a result of this incident, We are undertaking reviews of all of our procedures, our emergency response procedures, our communications systems, and ensuring that we are following the best practices. There's some immediate actions that we've taken to ensure that, for example, information such as course locations and instructor information is not publicly posted. It was on our website. Now it's behind a firewall. We're looking at our information and training that we provide for instructors, for employees, and for students on what to do in terms of an emergency event. We're looking at ensuring that information posters and so on are up to date, are easy to read, and easy to follow. Um, we're looking at how, if students have to move across campus after hours, how we can support them. We do have walking programs and other supports, but make sure that students are aware of what safety supports are available, how they can get a hold of them when they need them. Because one of our learnings is it's clear that we had not adequately engaged with communities that felt at risk, communities that were receiving, might have been receiving threats, and supporting them on how to deal with them. So we have some very important lessons from that experience that we are very much following up on. But at the same time, I really do want to emphasize that we are a safe community. Events such as what occurred are very rare events, and our students have the opportunity to enjoy a sense of safety and security when they're on our campuses and in the community around us.
True, true. And I think hearing that from you provides a bit of comfort to not only the parents but also the students that and professors, and learning about the different measures from the lessons that you have learned is key to providing comfort in understanding that okay, there is information available, but there's also processes that are being implemented so that in the future, hopefully this does not happen, that we do know the guidelines and how exactly to approach a situation like this. And
Yeah.
um,
And if I could just
yeah,
add, to connect the earlier question as well, at the root of hate is a lack of understanding of other perspectives.
true,
And so our commitment to equity, diversity, inclusion, anti-racism, truth and reconciliation, these are about creating environments where people can learn from each other, can learn about each other. And the more work that we do to create that environment of openness and inclusion, an environment of free expression and dialogue, the more we can do to address the determinants of hate, which comes really from a lack of understanding of others.
true. True. And yeah, like you said, having an understanding is key. And that's why, like I've seen in the University of Waterloo's commitment to really have this equity, diversity, inclusion, the truth and reconciliation, really understand it fully. So that, because like you said, it is a hate motivated attack. And that comes down, of course, to a lack of understanding, a lack of awareness of what exactly these aspects mean to different people. And Dr. Vivek, those were the questions that I had for the audience, from the audience. And as we wrap up, in as much as, of course, you are currently the current president and vice chancellor of the University of Waterloo, you have had your career where it built up to this with so many different points of turns and points and areas that you have learned from, but also areas that have helped you grow. And the question that I do want to ask, and I think this is something that many young people would like to know, is what principles guided you as you navigated your career and personal journey? And how can today's youth, like myself, prepare for success in academia and beyond?
So I'll start by just saying that, my journey into academic leadership is really based on my experiences as a student. And um, it might seem funny, this coming from a university president, but it was not the experiences in the classroom that prepared me to be a leader. It was all of the other experiences that I had in student clubs and student government that helped me in developing the leadership skills, communications, and how to, I was president of a student housing co-op, which was a corporation. And I had to learn how to read a balance sheet and how to do audited financial statements. And so I would really encourage students, again, while you're at university, take advantage of all of the opportunities that are there outside of the classroom, outside of the library, outside of the laboratory, different clubs, different activities, because that's what really opens you up and prepares you for life. The second thing, in terms of values and principles, having trained as a public health physician, what I really learned is the importance of the social determinants of health, and that our health outcomes, when we think about health, we think about hospitals, about medical care, but the most significant determinants of our health are not medicine, not surgery, not genetics. They are our social environment, our physical environment, access to education, access to key resources of living, to healthy food, physical activity. And as we saw through COVID, the people most affected by the disease, as well as the control measures, were people in poor quality housing, people in jobs where they didn't have the ability to work from home, and people in jobs where they had to interact closely with others. So the nature of their employment was a key determinant of their health outcomes. And so that learning really has helped define my approach. And, that is that, education is one of the biggest determinants of health. And if we can help people on that journey to education, that will improve their life outcomes. It will give them an opportunity to earn the resources to support themselves and their families, but ultimately it will help them improve their health and social well-being.
True. Thank you very much for sharing that piece of advice with me and with the general audience as well, Dr. Vivek, on taking advantage of the experiences and the opportunities you have outside of the classroom. And the second one, which I think is relatively new to me as well, but also to so many different people, is having these social determinants of health and being putting yourself in positions where socially you are thriving from a physical, mental, emotional perspective, and that does help in terms of building and preparing you for your success. Dr. Vivek Goel, I want to thank you for being on the Younger International podcast with me today. We've had a very interesting discussion from all things the co-op at the University of Waterloo, where you believe the university can position itself as a top university and institution, not just nationally in Canada, but globally as well, to viewing entrepreneurship, which is something that I'm intrigued by, as something that you have and go along with, to answering the questions that we had from the audience, and then sharing your personal tips and advice that me, myself, and fellow young people can learn from. So I want to thank you very much again for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It was a great conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And to the audience listening and watching this from wherever you're watching this from, I want to thank you again for tuning in and listening to these thought provoking discussions that I've had and that we continue to have. For many more of this, please share this, subscribe, and keep informed as we will have lots more coming your way. I want to thank you again. And that's it from me, Darren Harry Bainey, the host of the Younger International Podcast. Thank you.